welcome to another video on the She Talks Systems channel. If you're new to my channel, a warm welcome. My name is Nicola Melinda. I am a verified ClickUp consultant. Today we are going to be talking all about team hiring, which is actually quite a time-consuming process for those of you who are managers. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can streamline that process and leverage ClickUp to make it a lot easier, not just for yourselves, but also to provide a really enjoyable hiring process and experience for the candidates who are coming to work with your company. Not having a system in place to manage hiring is one of the biggest operational gaps. There is always team members who are joining. You will have to manage new roles popping up, replacing team members. So to have a system where it is literally locked in, all you have to do is set your job description, set up your application and go. It is such a dream. So before we dive into the actual demo, and there is one coming, I promise, I thought it would be helpful to actually take a look at a process map at a high level of what actually the hiring process looks like. So what you've got on the screen is just a whiteboard. This is something created inside of ClickUp as well. So if you haven't explored the whiteboard view, definitely check it out in ClickUp. So at a very high level, we're thinking about what are the actual steps that your new applicant will go through when it comes to being recruited potentially by your business. So your new applicant is going to fill out an application form of some sort. This is quite typical in the online space, especially if you have a remote team. You'd want them to fill out some sort of form where you can capture their details. Then we have the application response. Now, in an ideal world, a response can send out to every applicant that responds to your job advert. This doesn't always happen, and so these are some of the gaps that we're going to address in this video. So the application response is just that acknowledgement, that automated response to just let the candidate know we've got their application and we'll be in touch. Now we can move on to actually reviewing the application itself, which will be down to yourself. If you're the hiring manager, regardless of your role in the business, this is something that will have to be done, and that will give you a decision. So we now have to decide, is this candidate actually successful? Do we want to progress them in the process? If we do, we then want to update that status, invite them for an interview. If they're not successful, if they're just not a fit, then again, we still want to update that status, but we want to send some sort of an automated response. This is where a lot of people drop the ball. Instead of having that automated response to send out an email, that's what can get missed in the process. And so this is just a nice touch to, at least for the candidate side, understand they weren't successful. So we're going to close that gap with just putting in an automated response in this process. Then you have the invite for the interview. They'll hold the interview. If there's going to be a second interview or another part of the process, that's when it can get a little bit more built out, and it will be based on a case by case. Some roles don't require second or third interviews. Other roles, they do. You may also include test projects or trial projects for your applicants. So whatever the process looks like, you'll definitely expand it out based on this process map. But at a high level, we know that we get the application, we'll review the application, we'll have an interview or meeting of some sorts. We'll decide if we want to see them again, and we'll also have to share an offer if that candidate is successful. At each touch point where the candidate is not successful, what we're doing is ensuring we are still sending out some sort of communication. So how can we bring all of this into ClickUp? Let me show you what this simple workflow can look like inside of your ClickUp. So for the purpose of this video, we have a team recruitment space. So we're going to pop across to this area, and I have a list view, which is actually a form view inside of the space. And the way to do that and create this view is if you go to where your space is, you've got team recruitment and the little plus icon. What you can do is create your list and folders, but you can also create documents, dashboards, whiteboards, and a form. So this is the view that we have chosen. This is what we call the sidebar view for the form, and I've labeled it job applications. Now this is a very simple hiring workflow. If you are a smaller company, perhaps you don't have a lot of open roles, then in this case you'll use this form to hire for multiple roles. Okay, so we're inside of the job applications list, and so we have a couple of views at the top. We have a list view, then we have the actual form view itself, and then we have a calendar view as well, so we can see all of the interview dates and a calendar view. So for the application form in this particular list, it's going to capture the applications of multiple roles that you have currently available that you're hiring for in your company. So we've kept it quite high level. We're not going to be asking specific questions around specific experience and questions that are pertaining to the specific roles, but I will show you later in this video how you can manage multiple roles inside of ClickUp as well if you want to have more specific application forms. But in this particular view, this is a very high level application form just to capture those initial details and give you enough information so that you can really have a look at this applicant, make a decision whether you want to progress them or not. So we're going to capture their full name, which is going to come through as the name of the task inside of ClickUp. And then I have another field here, which is called your preferred first name. So with the your preferred first name field, the reason I'm doing that, it's a little bit strategic. It allows me to send email automations and only send it to their first name. We're also asking for their email address as well. And then we've just got some generic questions. So what's your time zone? Where are they based? Can be helpful if you need your team members to be based in a specific region of the world. How did you hear about the role? That's always good to know where the best applicants are coming from as well. So we've got referrals, LinkedIn, job fair, other. Which job are you applying for? So we've got a couple of jobs that are on at the minute. So operations assistant, marketing assistant, and what experience do you have? This is an area where the candidate can really share their experience, so they can share how many years they've been in their field, what their speciality is, what systems they're used to, what type of clients or businesses they work with, all that kind of information. So it'll be their work experience. And then if they do have a portfolio, a LinkedIn or website that they can share a URL link to, they can add that in this link box here. And then we have a question where we're asking them to upload a CV, resume or portfolio, something that you can have a look at. Once they go ahead and submit that application, this is how it comes through inside of the list. So we have our list view built out and we're using the statuses. We're keeping our statuses quite high level. So we just have new applicant, in progress and complete. 3 simple statuses. Now, instead of having every stage of the hiring process as a status, instead what we're doing is we're using the application status. So we can use this custom field and we can say whether we're reviewing the application, whether we're interviewing the candidate, or we've offered them the role, or they've been hired or rejected. So we're using this as a way to separate out, because your applications could be in progress, but they could be at different stages. They could be at a reviewing stage or interviewing stage or an offer stage. Perhaps you're waiting for them to accept an offer. So in this case, we're just separating out the stages. So we know these are all of our in progress applications. These are new applicants that we need to have a look at. And anyone that's hired can be marked as completed. What we have as well are some additional custom fields that you won't find on the application form. So you may notice we've got our job source where they found the job and the job role. These are already applied to the list view, but we've got another field for hiring manager. So if you do have an OBM on your team, an online business manager or a project manager, director of operations, someone else outside of you, the CEO, who is hiring for these roles, then you can add that person. This will not add to their task list. It just marks them down as they're the person responsible for hiring for this role. And then you've got your interview dates and you've also got interview feedback, which is the text box. So any notes could be added into this section as well. So we've grouped this based on the status. We don't have any filters in place. We're keeping this quite simple, and you can always build on this as you need, or you can streamline it down if you feel like you don't need everything, but we're just focusing on the high level needs at the minute. So if we open up the task for the application now, we can see that an email has been sent out to our applicant, and this is just acknowledging their application. But we've also got all of the answers, the details that they have shared in the application form, which makes it really easy for us to just keep a track of everything. So when you do go ahead and have the interview, if they are successful, you can either keep the details inside of the interview notes custom field, and this is what we've put in place. So interview feedback, and you can keep any notes inside of that custom field as well. And you can also share activities. So if you are sharing updates between your team, you can utilize the activity field that you can see here on the right hand side, which makes it a lot easier to keep a track of when you last contacted the candidate. If there are any recent updates, perhaps they've reached out or you've had some communications, you can share that in the activity field. So there's always that digital paper trail. So what we have are some automations that can support us. So we've got our email automations that are in place, and we also will be managing this application using the application status. So what we can do is drag that custom field across, and what we want to do is update the status of this application. So we want to say that we are now reviewing that application. What that means is it's going to update this status of this particular form into in progress. So for a new candidate, we can set our hiring manager. We can also go ahead and if there's an interview date already set, we can apply that. So if you prefer to see this in a different view as well, what we can do is set up a Kanban board view. Now, something that you're able to do is you could also set this as a default view as well, which means that when you come into this list, the default view will be the board view. So we'll set that up, and let's regroup our tasks. So we'll regroup them based on the custom field, which is the application status. So because we have our automations in place that will update this task, whether it's in progress or it's completed. But now you can see that we actually have a cleaner view of all of our applications as they are coming in. So any new applications, they're not going to be sent here. They're going to be seen in the list view. So we might filter this and just put new applications. I'm going to rename this to active applications. So now in this view, we've filtered it. So we're only going to see the new applications coming in. Any active applications will be sat inside of the board view, which is the default view. And you'll be able to see who you're reviewing. So we can also update our application cards directly from this board. So if we have someone that's been offered a role, let's just say this person has now been hired. They've come into the company, we've hired them. That means that their card will be closed down. So if we were to also reject an application, so let's just say we've reviewed this application and they're actually not a fit, we can pop them into the rejected column, and that card will also be closed down, but we will have an email that will go out to let them know that they're not a fit for this particular position. So this is where we can actually close that gap in terms of making sure our candidates are getting responses to their applications. So this just helps you to keep that communication going through the process. So now going across to our automations, I did say to you that there's a reason why I've put your preferred name onto the application form, and this is the reason why. So when I open up my email automation, the name of the task is the full name of the candidate, but I don't necessarily want to send out a full name. I don't want to say, hey, to Nicola Peters. I just want to send it to the first name. So we're not able to do any split fields inside of ClickUp. So what I've done is added on the preferred first name, which makes it easier for me to just send an email and it will just use the first name that the applicant gives. So we're taking a look at the calendar view, which is the view to show the interview dates that have been set for your applicant. So we'll be able to see any dates that have been set plotted in this section. And the way that we've set this up is that these are not based on due dates. Instead, they are based on the custom fields. So from our layout options, what we have done is switched off the start date and due date, and instead we're looking at the interview date as the custom field that's showing. So this will now show any interviews that are booked in, scheduled, and our hiring manager can just keep a track of those interviews and update the status for our application. Now, depending on how you continue to progress your applicant through your hiring workflow, I also used Dubsado to help me to navigate the contracting side of things if they're successful, booking the interview as well if they are successful for an interview. I do have another video where I show you how to manage hiring using Dubsado. I'm going to link this video so that you can take a look and see how the two can work hand in hand between ClickUp and Dubsado. However, if you don't use Dubsado and you use other tools for managing contracts and booking your interviews with your candidates, then you may want to consider using Zapier, which is a third-party integrator. This app will bring together your other tools and allow you to build a workflow outside of ClickUp. So it just covers the additional areas of the workflow that cannot necessarily be navigated inside of ClickUp, such as scheduling appointments or actually signing a contract with your new team member. Now, I did promise to show you how you can navigate managing multiple roles without using just one application form. So perhaps you are hiring for more specialist roles and you need to have separate application forms, or you do want to ask more specific questions that are pertinent to that particular job role. I'm going to go back to our space inside of ClickUp. And inside of the team recruitment space, we have a recruitment folder. And inside of that folder, what we've done is we have duplicated our job applications workflow. So the benefit of doing it this way is that you can now have specific forms for each job application. So you can ask specific questions to capture experience. And it also means that you can separate out the applicants for each of the roles. So there isn't that mix inside of these lists. If you have multiple hiring managers on your team, again, they only need to go into the list that they need to. Yes, on the job applications, you can filter based on the job role itself. However, if you want to capture more granular details and you want to manage this separately, this is how you can do this inside of ClickUp. Each role will now have its own application form, its own list and active applications board. So everything stays the same, but it means that you can apply more specific questions to this application form. So instead of keeping it generic as it is right now, you can make some tweaks to this particular application form. So for example, we would take out which job role are you applying for, because that's no longer relevant because this is a very specific role. We can update the description as well to say, so when you do update the forms in this area, then it means that these forms will all have their own separate link that you can add into your job description or wherever you are advertising the role and you want to share it with people. So any applicants that fill out this particular form will only be and should only be for this role. So we've got two roles, an ops assistant and a marketing assistant role. You could have another role for a copywriter or a manager, an online business manager. All of those roles would sit under this section. And you can save this down as a template. Every time you start to hire for a new role, you've got a template ready to go. You could just set this up inside of your ClickUp. Because this is in a folder, it means that you're going to be able to see all of the applications across the whole folder. So if you have multiple roles, let's say you're hiring for 3 to 5 different roles, all of the applicants will be viewable at the folder level. If you've got an applicant that's been interviewed, you'll be able to see who has interviews being booked, where there are offers out for the role, or who's been hired recently as well. So all of these statuses are still the same, but you're able to see everything at a higher level. Same at the list view, but what we have switched on in this section as well, again, if we go to the options here, we have also added on the locations of where these tasks are. So then you can see exactly what list that these applicants are sitting in. Makes it a lot easier for you to quickly understand, is this person for the operations role or the marketing role? And you can see that quite easily in this particular view. So if you are looking to do more hiring, then hopefully this gives you an idea of what you can build out inside of ClickUp. If you have enjoyed today's video, definitely hit like and subscribe so that you get notified of new videos that come out on the channel. Until next time, I will see you on another video. Thank you so much for watching.